Of CESS, an eminent social scientist, Professor Yogendra K. Alar, Chancellor of Gujarat Central University and formerly Union Minister of State for Science and Technology, Sri K.T.Rama Garu, Minister of Information Technology and Panchayat, a young dynamic minister and who has a vision in the construction of Telangana state in all its dimensions. Professor R.K. Mishra, a great institution builder, Professor K.T.Rama, an able academic leader, Professor Surendra, a serious researcher in the area of industrial studies, and distinguished eminent social scientists of the dais, like Professor C.H. Rao, a well-known economist, a founder member of CESS, has come over here to grace this occasion. Professor K.T.Rama, an outstanding intellectual and former director of Center for Economic and Social Studies, has come over here to grace the occasion. There are many intellectuals, distinguished economists, social scientists present in the hall. And there are also policy makers, representatives from different industrial associations and federations, academicians and researchers, people's representatives, student friends, media friends, and other dignitaries who are present here, and ladies and gentlemen. To all of you, a very good morning and a warm welcome to the very important two-day national seminar on Telangana Industrial Policy 2014, a critical look. This is a very important occasion and opportunity for us to provide a constructive, objective, intellectual inputs to the concept, context, and content of the industrial policy and for its implementation. This is also an opportunity and imperative to contribute to the construction of Telangana state. The institute has been nourished continuously and constantly with the traditions of providing policy inputs to the governments with critical analysis basing on the robust empirical evidence by eminent personalities of national, international standing in academics as chairpersons and as directors and as members of the governing body of CESS. Sri B.P.R. Vittal, founder of the institution, late Professor K.T.Rama, late Professor G. Ramireddy, late Professor S.K. Rao, Professor C.H. Rao, founder member of the institute, Professor K.L. Krishna, Professor Radha Krishna, late Professor Vaidin Khan, and Professor Venkatramaya, Professor Krishna Ji, Professor Mahendra Dev, and Professor Manoj Panda, we have contributed to the policy making through our work. For example, I would like to put before you a few important things which I have done for the Telangana region in the undivided state. Resettlement and rehabilitation of Ustis of single project for supplying Manjira drinking water to twin cities of Hyderabad and Secunderabad. For a decade, we have worked in locating in a resettlement rehabilitation activities of this project. We have spent a decade in designing and monitoring the concurrent evaluation, looking at the different kind of dimensions of the program to calibrate the policy and implementation process of the resettlement rehabilitation of this project. We spent a decade. We have been working on the issues of children in Telangana region in the undivided state for the last 1.5 decades. We were the first to provide poverty estimates at district level in this country. This was done by Professor Radhakrishna and his team. We have been working on the poverty-related issues for the last 3 decades. And we have immensely contributed to the understanding of the poverty situation in Telangana region. We have worked for a decade of women's empowerment and poverty in Telangana region in our undivided state. So our contributions in monitoring and evaluation, assessing the impact of this program has contributed to the calibration of the concept and the implementation process of this program in the state. We have also responded on the issues of suicides, pharmacy suicides in Telangana in undivided state. Professor Revati has led this research, so have contributed for policy inputs from our institute. We have alerted the then government, to take care of pollution effects of Patanjali industrialization area, where agriculture, livelihoods of the people, and the natural resources like land and water have been polluted. People's health have been deteriorated. We have warned, we have alerted the states to take care of the pollution contribution, impact of the industrialization process. We have prepared first HDR, Human Development Report, for the state of undivided state of Andhra Pradesh, and second HDR also. We have worked out a state development report edited by Professor Hanumantrao and Professor Mahendra Dev at the time. It has generated a lot of debate, and people also later corrected their policy because of our robust kind of evidence, scientific evidence we have provided. So we have participated in task force, and that was the work which we have done in the Telangana region of the undivided state. We have continuously providing inputs to the state, but closely working with them. And after formation of the Telangana state, we were part of the task forces constituted by the Chief Minister of Telangana state. And we have contributed our might to shaping the policies of the different sectors. One on agriculture by Professor Revati and monitoring evaluation by Professor Ravi from our center. So we are preparing now Human Development Report for Telangana, and it will be submitted in the month of February, and it probably will be released in the month of February itself. And we are also on the work of preparing the Millennium Development Goals for the state of Andhra Pradesh and State Development Report for Telangana. I think we are also proposing to do a SAMS, Social Accounting Matrix for the for understanding the macroeconomic implications of the economy of Telangana. And we are also looking at, we want to propose to do growth investment patterns and planning strategies for Telangana. We are also aware of the fact there is a need to make estimates of the GSTP and other macro parameters of Telangana in the context of bifurcation. So we are planning to do this work. We are proposing to do this work. We have to work on agriculture report also, and we are also working on industry issues, and we have to work on the marginalized groups, scheduled caste, scheduled right, OBCs, and minorities who constitute larger chunk of population in Telangana state. We want to bring out many development reports, sir, on different aspects like rural development, and we want to make them annual feature of our CESS to contribute to the policy making in the state of Telangana. So we have grown and continue to grow with the values of plurality and diversity in organization of research. We interact with different stakeholders of the society, construct the comprehensive understanding of phenomena to provide policy inputs. The seminar stands as an evidence to the long nourished and cherished these values, stands as a testimony to the long nourished and cherished values that provides the inputs to Telangana state. We have networked with the national and international research and policy networks and continue to do so to bring insights to calibrate the indigenous knowledge which is very abundant with our faculty of CESS to provide policy inputs to the state of Telangana. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
పేట కూడా కాదండి ఇది. ఒక్క నిమిషం. విఐపి లాంచ్ పక్కన రామగోపాల్ ఇల్లు
బిగ్ బజార్ పంజాగుట్ట దాటినాక సిగ్నల్ వస్తుంది. అమ్మవారి గుడి అగ్రవాల్ కంట్రాక్టర్ మధ్యలో సంజు ఉంటుంది.
విఐపి లాంచ్ పక్కన
వల్లే
Professor Y.K. Alak, Professor R.K. Mesra, Professor Kishan Rao, Professor Galap, Professor Surender, distinguished participants. I am delighted to participate in the national seminar on the new industrial policy of Telangana State 2014, a critical look, and chair the inaugural session. The seminar assumes contextual relevance given the emerging macroeconomic concerns of Indian economy. My remarks confine to some of these concerns from a development perspective. The developing countries in their development strategies have given high priority to industrial development. However, the industrial policies adopted by them differ over time. In India, there are distinct industrial policy regimes. The national government formed soon after independence accorded a major role for the state in industrialization along with import substitution policy. The state-led growth laid the foundation for industrialization, technological change, and created a pool of scientific and technical manpower. While industrial strategy could break the prolonged structural stagnation experienced by India in the colonial period, the industrial growth rate remained moderate for over 3 decades. During the same period, outward-oriented Asian countries grew much faster by taking advantage of the post-war expansion of international trade and investment flows. India moderately relaxed controls on industry in the 1980s. Professor Alak was also responsible for some of these changes. And as a consequence, industrialization witnessed some fillip. Finally, in 1991, Indian policymakers, including Professor Y.K. Alak, initiated wide-ranging economic reforms to enlarge the scope of private sector by removing the controls on industry and privatizing the public enterprises. However, industry sustained a growth rate more or less as that of GDP, and its share in GDP remained at about 26% between 1991 and 2011 and 12. It is the service sector that contributed to higher growth in the post-reform period. Its share in GDP increased from 41% in 1991 to 57% in 2011-12. The decline in the share of agriculture led to a corresponding gain only by the service sector, not by the industrial sector. This does not mean that industry is losing its relevance in sustaining growth. In 2011-12, industry contributed 24% of total employment, while service sector contributed 27% of total employment, which is much below its share in GDP. Clearly, from the employment point of view, higher industrial growth is preferable. Relevance of industry can also be seen from another perspective. In the inter-industry India flows of the Indian economy, industry accounted for 60% of the total inputs in the economy and 45% of the service sector input. Hence, higher growth of industrial sector is necessary for a sustained growth of the economy and the generation of employment. It is worrisome that there has been a significant slowdown in industrial growth in the recent years. According to the latest economic survey, the growth rate of manufacturing sector is averaged 0.2% per annum. The construction sector, a major source of employment, which witnessed a close to double-digit growth rate during 2004-05 and 2011-12, lost its momentum during the last 2 years. The service sector also lost its momentum since its growth depends on commodity-producing sectors. Studies show high economic growth is difficult to sustain without broad-based productivity-led agricultural and manufacturing growth. This would provide stable domestic market for Indian products. In this context, the observation of Dr. K.T.Rama, Governor of Reserve Bank, that Indian industry should strive for make in India, for India, make in India, for India, is apt. It is heartening to hear that the recent official pronouncements see the importance of public investment. The idea that government should lead investment revival is gaining ground in policy circles. The Chief Economic Advisor has recently rightly observed that public investment may have to play a greater role to complement and crowd in private investment. It is a fact that private investment in infrastructure is facing severe resource constraint. The banking system has been affected by overdues of private borrowers, and banks are unwilling to lend to new projects. Some scholars argue that difficulties in taking decision making on project proposals have affected the ease of doing business. In a recent ranking of countries, India ranked 142nd in ease of doing business index as compared to China 90, Russia 62 and Brazil 120. In the emerging context, there is a need to push decentralized industrialization. Many states have brought out their vision documents and enacted industrial policy acts. Gujarat government also has brought out a comprehensive document on industrial policy. Tamil Nadu government has also brought. Telangana government also has brought out recently Industrial Policy Act. The conference proposes to discuss these policy documents from the perspective of emerging macro scenario. It makes an appraisal of the industrial policy document brought out by the Telangana government. Thank you.
Morning to all. To conserve economy's time, I just give an outline available, and you know pretty well. Within 6 months of governance, the new government under the leadership of Honorable Chief Minister K.T.Rama, or popularly known, he took a number of initiatives. Among them, this new industrial policy is one. On this policy, today and tomorrow, the paper presenters and discussants and other people will discuss, raise issues, probe into the problems of various facets. This seminar covers different facets and aspects of the new industrial policy, such as specific industries, fiscal and financial burdens. Certain industries like pharma, textiles, MSM. These apart, it also covers new entrepreneurship, women and Dalits, etc. The government is very sincere in its intentions and in its implementations. Already within 1.5 months, a number of steps have been taken. The success of the new policy depends equally on how the electricity cooperates, to which will cooperate, and its various hindrances and others will be overcome. My friend Professor Surinder will give other details about this seminar.
मातृदेवो भव, पितृदेवो भव, आचार्य देवो भव, अतिथि देवो भव. Srimatre Namaha. Respected Chairman, Honorable Minister for Panchayat and Information Technology, Government of Telangana State. Professor Y.K. Alagaru, Chancellor, Central University of Gujarat and keynote speaker. Professor R.K. Mishra, Guest of Honor, Director of Institute of Public Enterprise, Hyderabad. Professor S. Kishan Rao, Director, National Academy of Development. Professor C.H. Hammantrao Garu, Professor K.T.Rama Garu, Professor Haragopal Garu, and galaxy of intellectuals, academicians, policy makers, policy implementers, industry captains, delegates from various trade associations, women entrepreneurs, invitees, print and electronic media, ladies and gentlemen. I am privileged to stand before you to speak a few words about the plan, structure, execution of this two-day national seminar on the new industrial policy of Telangana State 2014, a critical look. Telangana State is now 7 months old baby. After 5 months of its birth, the new industrial policy was announced in the last week of November 2014. Simultaneously, the government also has brought out a legislation, TS Pass, for single window clearances of industrial projects. On December 6, 2014, I met Professor Radhakrishna Garu and also Professor Gala, Director of this institute, and mooted the proposal of conducting a seminar for intensive debate on various issues relating to policy formulation and its implementation. The response was spontaneous. It is heartening to report that CESS came forward to provide a common platform where all the stakeholders can intensively debate and discuss various issues. Immediately, without losing time, we had identified issues for consideration, resource persons, institutions, both at the state level and also at the national level for participation. Now you are the witness to this response. The focus now will be on the new industrial policy of Telangana State. The issues identified are thematically arranged in 6 technical sessions. 3 technical sessions today, followed by a panel discussion, and the remaining 3 followed by a panel discussion tomorrow. The first technical session is on the new industrial policy and interstate comparisons. Delegates from Chhattisgarh, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana are presenting papers on this theme. The session is chaired by Professor P. Venkatramaya. The second technical session captures the entrepreneurial perceptions of the new industrial policy. Delegates from FACI, CII, Hyderabad Management Association, ALEEP, COVE are participating in the discussion. The chairperson is Srimati Rama. The next session is devoted to a discussion on new industrial policy and its implications on the state budget in terms of fiscal and financial incentives offered to SMEs and large enterprises. Professor S. Kishan Rao Garu will chair the session. Rural industrialization and environmental issues are discussed in 4th session on the 2nd day. This session is chaired by Dr. B. Yanam Garu. A major issue of industrialization, that is, the regional disparities and industrial dispersal, will be taken up for a closer look in the 5th technical session. Professor K. Krishna Garu is the chairperson. Lastly, 2 of the 14 thrust areas mentioned in the industrial policy, namely pharma industry, a capital-intensive, urban-oriented and export-earning sector, and the other one, the textile sector, agro-based, labor-intensive, rural-based, are focused as case studies in the 6th session. Sri J.S. Ranjan, IAS, Garu will chair the session. In addition to these 6 technical sessions mentioned above, we have planned 2 panel discussions, one on each day at the end of the technical sessions. Now, the sessions, the 2-day national seminar will be concluded with the valedictory address by Honorable Minister for Industry, Government of Telangana, Sri Jupalli Krishna Rao Garu. The last word. CESS has provided an opportunity to all the stakeholders of this new industrial policy instrument to discuss, deliberate the contents and provide necessary academic inputs for its execution. Let us play our role effectively and efficiently and help this newly born baby. Thank you.
Respected Honorable Minister for Panchayat and Information Technology, Government of Telangana, Sri K.T.Rama Garu. Respected Professor Y.K. Alak, Chancellor, University of Gujarat, and former Minister of State for Science and Technology. Respected Professor Krishna Rao Garu, Chairman, National Academy of Development, Hyderabad. Respected Professor V. Sundar Garu, a person who has mooted the idea of holding this seminar. Respected Professor Galak, Director of CESS, and Dr. Sidhu. It's a great occasion. About 68 years back, John Burke White wrote a book, The Birth of a New Nation. And now today we are seeing the birth of a new state, Telangana. We all, I think, are experiencing the thrill of the birth of a new state. And it's the time that we make right decisions. Because if we make decisions which are not wise, there will be an impact not only for this generation, but for many generations to come. Also, I think it is a momentous occasion, simply for the thing that Telangana, being the 29th state, can set trend for many good things to come for the country. We have committed a number of mistakes in the development process, not only at center, but also at the state level. But I hope, I think, Telangana can take a leaf from such experiences and can begin afresh and can show, I think, the light to the country that it needs very badly. Also, sir, I feel that within 6 months, we have taken, as Dr. Krishna Rao told, we have taken revolutionary steps, and we wish, and I think the ministry has been doing, our beloved Chief Minister K.C.R. has been doing, I think whole state is doing. We can make Telangana a sort of, neighbors. Neighbors should feel jealous of the state, and Telangana should feel pride, pride of itself. Given that, I think industrial development is a very, very important component of the total development process. And I think we are going right if we take the lead from what we have done right in 1955, Professor Y.K. Alak is there. We started talking about machines to make machines. If you see Telangana, we find that the gross domestic state level product of Telangana, 30% of that comes from industry and services, which I think is much below the national mark. We have stupendous problems. We have youth which are very intelligent. We have given prime ministers to India. We can best administrators to India. We have given the top thinkers to India, but we still have the problem of employment. I always say, I always feel, if you don't give employment to our youngsters, then it becomes time bombs. And therefore, I think the urgent need, I think, before us is to see that we give employment to youngsters and we engage them. But how do we do that? And we have seen the process in India and I think in many other countries. Can we do something where industry can come up and industry can fill up the gap? That's how things have happened in some parts of India and in many parts of the world. I am very proud of the fact that Telangana's first step in the field of industrial development has been very, very right. In the sense that we have followed a completely democratic process. It was, I think, in 1948 that we put the first industrial policy resolution before the Indian Parliament. And that happened for the second time in 1956. We have had number of industrial policies, but they are all industrial statements. They were never discussed. The way we are discussing that today, and I must compliment our two leaders here, Professor Kishan, who is a very eminent economist, Professor Sender, who has given his life, I think, time to industry, and also Professor Radhakrishna here, Professor Hanumantrao there, Professor Hargopal there, Professor Macharai there. They all have been leading lights, and we are following, I think, democratic process there. We are discussing it, thread there. We are discussing in different fora, and I am sure that then I think we will come to conclusions. But there are some questions there. Should we talk only of hard factors in the development of industry, or should we talk also of soft factors? In my way, I think it will be right, I think, and when we have ministers like K.T.Rama, who have been speaking and who have largely impressed not a section of people in Telangana or Andhra Pradesh, but I think all over the country. And that, I think, is our choice. What kind of education are we giving? Can we link up, I think, the development process with education? Can we create a suitable infrastructure for the development of industry? Can we keep in mind the demographic conditions of the state? Can we, I think, base our industrial development strategy on natural resource endowment factors? Can we create new skills? We have a skill development corporation, and I'm very unhappy to say that the skill development corporation of, I think, the former undivided state didn't move anywhere. I have been meeting skill development people at Delhi. I met the minister. I have been in touch with almost all the secretaries of the Government of India and many ministers. We have created funds, programs, but it's not that our funds and programs are unutilized and have not taken off at Delhi. Unfortunately, they have also not taken off, I think, in different states. Undivided Telangana was, I think, a very great disappointment. But can we learn, I think, from that? Can we, I think, start afresh? Can we use, I think, all those huge funds, which are more than, I think, the funds that sit in banking and insurance industry? Can we bring those funds to our state? Can we, I think, empower our youngsters by giving them suitable skills? Can we make skill, development as a movement in Telangana? I think the way we got Telangana, the same way can we reach, I think, each and every house and create talent, I think, over there. That's a big thing. And then comes the question of training and management development. We have a big state. We are the people who are leading India for last 25, 30 years. For last 10 years, we have lagged behind miserably. We have not been coming out of industry. We talk of development. We don't develop our own minds. And people who are sitting at the top in industry, they have hardly been exposed to things which are new. Then I think, sir, to the minister, I would like to submit, can we create a brand Telangana? It's high time. Telangana is known, but can we create a brand, and that brand should go beyond the country, because we should understand it very well that in country competing is very, very tough. But we can, I think, through this brand, which I think far, and as I look at corner, our minister has been in US, I think, for several years. And we know, I think, the potential. I am sure that we create a brand. R&D is a very, very important thing. Our R&D is very, very poor. How will you develop industry if we don't know what R&D is? We don't know what should be the R&D priority. We don't know where to start. That is a very, very important issue. And our minister has been in the States. Whole world is being led by US, not because they produce in factories, but because they do R&D, and R&D. And they do R&D in the cutting edge areas of industry. Can we go? I am very glad that the present industrial policy statement talks of aerospace industry, it talks of life sciences. But can we do the same kind of thing in agriculture? In the US, I think, when we talk of R&D priorities, US spends, I think, 1/3 of money, about $500 billion on R&D in agriculture. Then, sir, comes the question of policy, and Professor Radhakrishna mentioned it very, very aptly, ease of doing business. Let us not talk about India. I think that business we can leave to people who sit at Delhi. Let us, I think, concentrate on the business that we can do at Hyderabad, in Telangana. And then the question is that, can we give the feeling to people that you come and everything is there on the platter for you? Why should we talk of a model that we have given municipal policy of one stage kind of thing, one India kind of thing? I would suggest that if we have been talking to Singapore, then once an industrialist identifies and government accepts a proposal, then it's the government, I think, we should have been doing everything, and we should not make it run from one pillar, I think, to post. That was something which was happening in Gujarat. But sir, I am not a very great admirer of Gujarat. I'll just take half a minute. I am not a very great admirer of Gujarat in the sense that there is a big price right from Bombay, 500 kilometers, there not, I think, much has happened. And then comes the question of corruption. That is a very, very important issue. 30 years back, people are coming to Andhra, they started going to Gujarat because corruption, I think, took over precedence or other things. Then sir, I'll come to models. I'll just take a minute more. What kind of models should we pull, I think, for industrial development? And I'll just take a minute and I'll say that we should develop models based on Tamil Nadu. Cluster development, I think, can be a good thing, and the Scandinavian model of developing industry, the French model of developing industry at the high level. I think finish by saying our industrial policy is good but doesn't talk of targets, doesn't talk of monitoring, doesn't talk of quality and cost. Unless we have an industrial development policy, because I am a student of Florence Sargent, who was, I think, the father, I think, of industrial economics, he talked of quality and cost. If we don't have good quality and good cost, we can't go anywhere. I was in UK for some time and Margaret Thatcher was talking there, and Margaret Thatcher told that she knows only one thing: if goods are fine, customers come. If goods are not good, then customers don't come, goods they come back. So let us, I think, create a movement of industrial development in Andhra Pradesh where cornerstones are quality and cost, cornerstones are competitiveness, cornerstones are stupendous growth, cornerstones are that we become the best in India and we become we carve out a place for ourselves in the global map. Thank you.
A wonderful morning to all of you. Professor Radhakrishna, Chairman of the meeting here. Professor Alak has come all the way from Gujarat. Professor Galat, Professor Kishan Rao Garu, Professor Surendra Garu, and Professor Mishraji. And to all the dignitaries present off the dais, all the academicians and all my friends from the media as well. And to the wonderful staff of CESS. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate CESS and particularly Professor Revati for inviting me to this occasion. Thank you so much. CESS has been doing a wonderful job over a period of time, as was mentioned in the initial remarks, opening remarks. CESS has been instrumental in bringing several issues to the fore, such as several social issues to the fore. In fact, as I walked in, Professor Revati just handed me a note that she had prepared on the power loom sector and the crisis that there is in the power loom sector in Siricilla and elsewhere also. So CESS has been consistently doing a lot of good work. Congratulate all of you, and I request you also to continue to provide us the guidance, continue to provide us the direction, since we are, as it has been mentioned several times before me, we are a newly born state. A lot of people, especially from outside of our state, outside of the Telugu-speaking two states, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, keep asking me. A lot of them. In fact, when I was in Kerala recently and also when I was in Delhi recently, a lot of questions were asked as to why what was the need for a new state. We are a state that is 7 months old, so I think the question will get asked at least for some more time before we settle in and stop getting this question. So I keep giving a standard answer. I ask the person, whoever asks me this question, if they are married. Firstly, some people are, some people aren't, and in marriage, I'm just joking. Please, I don't make an issue out of this. I request my friends from media. In a marriage, as you know, some of us are happily married, some of us are not so happily married. So I keep asking the question all the time: are you happily married? Some people say yes, and in fact, most people say yes. Then I ask them if they have children, a family. They say yes. So my point I'm trying to make is, when you're married, when you start off, you start off in a single bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom apartment, and as the family grows, as you have children, as you have, their growing needs, you tend to reorganize your home. You tend to add another room, another shelf, a few more, areas to ensure everybody has their own space. That's exactly what India is doing today as well. We've reorganized as a country. We've merely created another state to ensure that a section of the society which feels that its voice is not being heard. Let us leave aside the emotional aspect of this issue of bifurcation, whether it should have happened this way, that way, who brought it up, and what was the need, etc. If you leave all that aside and think with logic, India as a country definitely had to reorganize at some point. When the first states reorganization recommended the formation of 14 states in India, our population was 30 crores, I think it is, approximately. And then today, about 60 years later, we are 120 crores. We have quadrupled in size. So therefore, at some point of time, as a family, as a country, we needed to reorganize. And unfortunately, in our country, as a lot of you would know and agree, we do not have a scientific process or a logic or a rationale for the formation of new states. On the one hand, we have something as small as Goa as a state in our country. And on the other hand, in our own country, we have something as large as Uttar Pradesh, the 6th largest administrative unit in the world, also as a state. So there isn't ever been a scientific process or a logic or rationale for the formation of new states in India. It's always, someone making an issue out of it and somebody agreeing that, it suited them politically to do it and therefore going ahead and doing it. That's how it has been. Which is a shame actually, if you ask me. Because as the world's largest democracy, I think we need to sit, think, organize, reorganize if needed. But to actually have a state come to a standstill, to actually have a vibrant metropolis like Hyderabad come to a standstill, for actually people to walk out into the streets and demonstrate and protest before the union government listens and actually agrees. That's a shame. As a country, I think, as a democracy, as we keep calling ourselves, the world's largest democracy, I think there is a certain level of maturity that we also have to achieve when it comes to tackling issues such as these. That aside, I also tell a lot of people when they ask me, for those people who are not so happily married, I keep telling them. For the happily married ones, I tell them it's a reorganization of the family. For the unhappily married, not so happily married ones, I keep telling them it's a divorce, And after divorce, it does take some time for you to settle in. Whether, one of the parties likes it or not. It is a divorce that has happened and therefore there is bound to be some spillover effect. So coming to the point of today's discussion, the new industrial policy of Telangana. Well, firstly, I think Telangana has this unique opportunity of making a clean slate beginning as a new state, as a state with a lot of expectations from its own people, and also as a state that is being watched very closely and keenly and intently from various sections across the country. I think Telangana has a very, very unique and a wonderful opportunity of making a clean slate beginning. So therefore, when you make a clean slate beginning, you need to ask some questions, especially when it comes to industrial expansion. Firstly, let's ask ourselves, why do people invest? Why do investors invest in any specific state or a specific country or a specific city? They don't invest for charity. Ultimately, enterprise is for making profit. Enterprise is ultimately dependent on bottom line. So therefore, let's ask ourselves. Now today we know Hyderabad as one of those urban metropolises which is known for 3 or 4 industries predominantly. The information technology, pharmaceutical industry, life sciences, and now of late also aerospace, I would say. So when you take a look at these 3 industries specifically, especially IT that I represent, information technology, what made, today we have wonderful infrastructure. We've been getting awards from the union government and other entities in Delhi on having the best infrastructure in the country. But what made, say let's assume about 1998 or 99 when our infrastructure was not so great in Hyderabad or Telangana, what made people invest? What made a information technology giant like Microsoft think about Hyderabad in positive light? The fact remains, what attracts investors? What attracts investors today? What attracted investors back then, people like Microsoft also included, is the fact that India offers low cost, high value human resources. That's the key. Even then when we had potholes in the roads and we didn't have great infrastructure, we didn't have a great airport, I think people still came in, Bill Gates came in, and other big wigs also walked in, precisely because we have something to offer that the world definitely values, and that is the low cost, high value human resource. And now, as we have grown, as we've expanded, as we have created better infrastructure, and as the world has changed, as we kept changing, I think the world also kept changing and evolving. Now, we remember, I remember, at least from my college days, when manufacturing and services were the mainstay of economy, a mainstay for jobs, industrialization, the mantra then was the 3D: define, design, and deliver. But today we have a new age, we have a new breed of entrepreneurs who believe in knowledge economy, new knowledge economy new knowledge economy entrepreneurs that have been created, a new class that has been created, believes, they also agree with the 3D mantra, but they also believe they've created their own doctrine, they've created their own mantra of 3I. Innovate, incubate, incorporate. See, today, I'm sure most of you sitting in the room here use social media, Twitters, Facebooks, WhatsApps, and there are several other things that I don't even know and I can't even name. Imagine this. I think it took Bill Gates, it's a rags to riches story, you know, a guy who got started in a garage and eventually made it big with Microsoft. But it took him decades to be noticed, acknowledged, respected. But imagine a Mark Zuckerberg. No time. I think in a few years, he became a phenomenon today. And eventually now, he's a known name, at least in the age group of 25 to 40, I would say from 10 to 40, you know. He's much better known than Bill Gates himself. So the new age, if you ask me, the new age, the new breed, the new class of entrepreneurs today also have redefined our paradigm. And that's exactly why when we started thinking about our industrial policy, have decided to take cognizance of the two worlds that exist out there. One, the manufacturing services world, which still continues to believe, rightly so, in the define, design, deliver mantra. And the new age of entrepreneurs, which actually believe that innovation is the key and we need to be agile. Absolutely, in a world where opportunities are lost or gained in a matter of few minutes, seconds, and hours, and sometimes, I think as a state we need to be agile. For example, when Tata Motors had decided to move out of West Bengal, even before the then Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh could move or think, I think Gujarat moved in, swooped in, did everything that they could have, and ensured that they actually set shop and that they were taken to Gujarat. Point is, we need to be agile in terms of attracting investment, in terms of ensuring that industry and industrial expansion happens at a quick pace. I think the governments need to be agile, quick. We have to think, because this is the world of instant gratification. We have to be on our feet and we have to think like a private sector enterprise. We can't think in the good old government mode where things take forever to happen. So therefore, when we started conceptualizing our new industrial policy, I'll just hit on the salient features of our industrial policy. We started trying to understand what the world demands and what the industry is really wanting from us. And therefore, what we realized is we wanted to ensure that the world understands through this policy that we are going to make, because that was the first act, first policy, first legislation that we were formulating after coming into being, after the new state of Telangana has come into being. So therefore, we realized that we needed a regulatory framework which will not only facilitate industrial growth, but gives that comfort to the industry that this government, any government for that matter in the state of Telangana, shall be a facilitator and not an entity that tries to do everything by itself. We want to be a facilitator, we want to ensure that the industry and we want to ensure that the investors feel confident enough and comfortable enough to invest in the state of Telangana and assure them that their investments would be safe and that they would get a great return on their investments. We also wanted our industrial policy to be inclusive, to facilitate social equality and ensuring that the benefits of industrialization reach all sections of the society, especially the marginal and socially disadvantaged sections. Also, we wanted this policy to be progressive, forward-thinking, world-class, ensuring that we beat the best policy that there is in terms of setting up standards. And therefore, what we've made made it a point to ensure to include was the fact that we wanted this policy to be a zero tolerance towards graft policy, a zero corruption policy with zero tolerance, as I said, for corruption. We also wanted to ensure that the world understands, because we came from, India is known for its license Raj. We wanted to also emphasize on the fact that this policy's mantra will also be minimum inspection and maximum facilitation from the government side. We will not intrude into areas which are unnecessary, which are absolutely redundant, which are absolutely rendered redundant in today's world. So therefore, we've come up with something very, very interesting called the TSI pass, which an abbreviation and the full form when you expand it would be the Telangana State Industrial Project Approval and Self-Certification Process, which in itself actually sets a new standard for our country. We believe that industry is doing us a favor by investing in our state. Any investor for that matter is doing us a favor by investing in our state. A lot of people, a lot of governments actually believe the other way around. A lot of people believe that by according a permission, by doing a quick turnaround of somebody's request, an investor's request, they believe that they are doing the investor a favor. Not so. In a world where everybody is competing with each other, in a world where our counterpart from Andhra Pradesh, our chief minister of Andhra Pradesh is traveling to Japan and other countries, our chief minister is traveling to other countries like Singapore, Malaysia, etc., vying for investment, vying for more and more investments to come in, more and more employment opportunities to be created. We need to understand that the investors have a choice. And if they choose your state, you actually should believe that they are doing you a favor by investing in your state. And therefore, we believe very, very strongly as a state and through this policy that the investors should be made to feel that they are in fact doing us a favor and we are not doing them any favors by actually giving permissions in the right stipulated time. And we've also brought in a very, very interesting aspect called self-certification. We've set very high standards for ourselves. We've said that for any project, from the stage of an application to the stage of approval, any project shall be permitted within 30 days. And if that 30 days actually lapses, then the deemed process comes in, the deemed certification process comes in, where an industry is self-certified, to be deemed to be self-certified. And we also have brought in something revolutionary called, like in the lines of a Right to Information Act, in the lines of a Right to Education Act, we've brought in an act called Right to Single Window Clearance. On the lines of right to information, as I just said, it is bestowed upon the applicants, the investors, this right to single window clearance, wherein if we fail to give permissions in 15 days and 30 days as stipulated, 15 days for a mega project and 30 days for any other project, penal action can be imposed on the concerned officers who are responsible for the delay in processing the application. And we've also ensured that a nodal officer is appointed for every industry. Any specific industry will have a nodal officer, and mega projects will have an investment cell, which is directly attached to the Chief Minister's office, with nodal officers who will receive, especially for those mega projects or projects of strategic importance to the state. The investor will be received at the airport by the protocol officer. They will be brought directly to the Chief Minister's office. They will be asked to give us a request in writing to set up the enterprise, their intent, the employment, that potential that can be created, the sort of investment outlay that there is, etc., etc. And they'll be asked to go back to their place wherever they've come from. And in a matter of 15 days, that nodal agency, that nodal officer who's dedicated to this task, shall go around the various offices that are required, which are required to give permissions, and permissions shall be given directly to the investor in a single document. That is the mantra that we are going to follow. And I've been asked this question several times also, this excessive focus on Hyderabad. Why do all governments, successive governments, focus only on the city of Hyderabad? Why don't we think about more districts? Why don't we decentralize? Why don't we go into the districts? See, when we talk about Hyderabad today, you also have to remember that Hyderabad today does not only represent the good old Greater Hyderabad Municipal Corporation or Municipality of Hyderabad. Hyderabad, when I mention the word Hyderabad today, it encompasses almost 40% of the state's population. The state's population is about 3.6 crores. And HMDA, the Hyderabad Metro Development Authority, now encompasses more than 1 crore population. And geographically as well, Hyderabad today permeates into 4 districts of Telangana. In fact, 5 districts of Telangana, Hyderabad included. Point I'm trying to make is, when I say Hyderabad, I don't necessarily mean the city of Hyderabad. I mean half of Telangana essentially, and 40% of Telangana population being covered. In spite of that knowledge, what we've also decided to do is focus on the remote districts such as Mahbubnagar, such as Warangal, such as Khammam, such as Adilabad. And therefore what we've done is we've proposed to create 2 industrial corridors. In the first phase there will be an industrial corridor between Hyderabad and Warangal, also another one between Hyderabad and Mahbubnagar towards Bangalore. And in the next phase we also propose to create an industrial corridor between Hyderabad and Nagpur towards the north, which covers another 3 districts as well. The other thing we're also doing is, now we've also identified 14 trust areas in the industry. And out of 14, 3 would be focused on Hyderabad. Life sciences, as you all know, Hyderabad enjoys dominance in bulk drugs. It's the bulk drugs capital of India. Several pharmaceutical companies of note, of repute, hail from Hyderabad, have their origins and headquarters in Hyderabad. So life sciences includes bulk drugs, formulations, vaccines. Yesterday you may have noticed our Chief Minister has inaugurated a new facility of Sanofi, in Medak district, and also biologicals and medical equipment. The second aspect, and the department that I represent, information technology. When I say information technology, I don't just mean software, I also mean hardware, I also mean biomedical devices, electronics, cellular communications. We are trying our best to ensure that the electronic manufacturing clusters that we have created also attract investment from various countries. Because as our Prime Minister has been saying, has been giving the slogan, Make in India. Yes, Make in India, but Make in India for India. We cannot just make in India and export outside. We also have to make products that suit our needs, that suit our requirements. And therefore we are focused on that aspect as well. And outside that, the other industry in Hyderabad that we are focused on also is aviation, aerospace and defense. In fact, the first big investment that we've been able to attract as a state after Telangana came to be was in the area of aerospace. A lot of people might know it, but some of you may not know this. Recently, President Obama was in India. The helicopter he goes around in is manufactured in Hyderabad. The cabin of the helicopter he goes around in, Sikorsky, it gets manufactured in Hyderabad. Therefore, Hyderabad has absolute potential to be the aerospace hub of this country because we have several defense institutions which are housed in Hyderabad. There are several national and international organizations which take great many supplies from Hyderabad in the space of aviation and aerospace. So these are the priority sectors as far as Hyderabad goes. Now outside of Hyderabad we have food processing, nutrition products which include dairy, poultry, meat and fisheries. In fact, Hyderabad also has the potential to be in food processing and agriculture related industries. Hyderabad has a great, Telangana has a great potential to be the seed bowl of this country. We have ICRISAT. We have 6 different soil types. We have wonderful climate conditions and we have a great opportunity also to be the seed bowl of this country because we have wonderful institutions such as ICRISAT here also headquartered. We also have automobiles. We also have textiles and apparels and centers such as Gadwal, Pochampalli, Sirisilla, Bongiri, which have huge potential to turn into a Tirupur, to turn into a Ichilkaranzi, and provided the right focus is given to these areas. Plastics, polymers, chemicals, petrochemicals, glass, ceramics, dry ports, these are other areas which are also of focus. Granite, mining, steel, there are several other opportunities as far as natural minerals go as well. And we are also not just focused on different trust areas. As I said, we are also committed to the growth of industry which is already existing in Hyderabad. Therefore, we've also launched another initiative called T-IDEA, which stands for Telangana State Industrial Development and Entrepreneur Advancement. And as part of this incentive scheme, we've promised in the industrial policy a stamp duty reimbursement, land cost rebate or land conversion cost, a power cost reimbursement, investment and interest subsidy as well, VAT reimbursement, seed capital for first generation of entrepreneurs, training and skill development cost reimbursements are included in the new policy as well. And also, as I said, the challenge of industrial expansion is to ensure that all sections of the society are covered. Therefore, additional incentives for SCs, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe entrepreneurs, women and physically handicapped entrepreneurs have also been included in the new industrial policy. The other important aspect, as you would know, would be availability of land and water. Land we have in abundance. We have more than 2.5 lakh acres of land which is now being handed over to our Telangana State Industrial Infrastructure Corporation, which probably has the biggest pool of land bank for any corporation of its size in the country. On the other hand, we also have planned now to create a drinking water grid, Telangana drinking water grid, which also takes into consideration the industrial needs and which will cater to the industrial needs to the tune of about 10% of water grid. Has been now allocated towards industrial usage as well. Having said all this, there is a definite challenge that we are going through right now. Telangana as a state, as you know, has received as a legacy the power crisis. There is a definite problem here, but we are also tackling it head on. In fact, in the next 4 years, the power issue in Telangana will not just dissipate, not just disappear. Telangana will not just be a self-sufficient state in power, but we shall be a power surplus state in the next 3.5 years. We have ambitious plans to generate more than 14,000 megawatts of power. In fact, as part of the State's Reorganization Act as well, Union Government has promised to set up a 4,000 megawatt ultra mega project through NTPC in Telangana, for which the process has already begun. Also, through GENCO, the Telangana Generating Corporation, we have entered into an agreement with BHEL to generate more than 6,000 megawatts of power in the next 2.5 years. We are also encouraging solar and all other renewable energy forms. Our Chief Minister is extremely keen on the renewable energy aspect as well. So in the next 3.5 years, I assure you one thing, as a new state, we will not only achieve the minimum that is required to ensure industrial expansion happens at risk-based, but we shall be one of those countries, one of those states in the country which will be looked up to as a model state as far as industrial expansion goes. For those who doubt whether this bifurcation was good, bad or whatever, I would only say one thing. If you look at other examples in our country, I think all states which have been created of late, be it Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand or Uttarakhand, or for that matter Gujarat when it was bifurcated from composite Bombay state, I think history shows you, indicators will show you. As academicians here, you would know this better than me. After 5 years or 10 years, most definitely, any indicator that you look at, be it industrial expansion or any other parameter, you would realize that the states that have been created have done much better than their parent states. Be it Bihar, Jharkhand, be it Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, or be it Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh. They've all done much better than their parent states. So therefore, I am of the firm belief, I'm of the firm philosophy that both Andhra Pradesh and Telangana 5 years from now would take a look back at this decision and say that this was a decision which did good for the two states, which did good for the Telugu speaking people, which was actually a good move in there. So once again, I appreciate CESS for conducting this seminar and also for inviting me. Thank you very much.
So I invite Professor Vaityalas to deliver the keynote address.
Minister K.T.Rama Rao, CESS Chairman, my colleague and friend, Professor Radhakrishna, my senior, Professor C.H. Hanumanta Rao, Director CESS, Professor Galar, Professor Mishra, Professor S.K. Rao, Professor Surinder, my friends in the audience, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Minister, I am happily married. But my wife and me give each other separate space. Not my children. So my daughter bought this from Macy's and she insisted that when I go to Hyderabad where she has many friends, I must wear it. So your children dominate you. I'm happy to be here. As the minister said, to write on a clean slate is fun. It's not often that you get a serious invitation to support the design of policy, a policy which has already been made for a new state. It is new, but and a lot of my thunder has been taken away by K.T.Rama Rao. So what I will do is, I have a printed speech which is lying with you. I'll speak around it. I'm told I can take up to half an hour, or shall I make it less? Yeah? Or what your time is, maybe less. I was told 30 minutes, but if you want me to speak less, I'm quite happy to do so. Telangana has resources, and they were spelled out by the minister and by earlier speakers, both of nature and of man, but it is landlocked, and transport costs are an important part of resource-based industrialization. And a landlocked state does face some disadvantages there. Once upon a time, what we would do is we would take care of that by giving subsidies, freight equalization, this, that, and the other. But as our fiscal constraints become more, and given the general philosophy which has been spelled out by the minister, relying on the market, trying to be of support, I think those things are now for the past. And I think he's also right in saying that it is modern technology and modern markets and the way of looking at your own location as a part of a larger national and global syndrome that gives you the approach which is fairly useful. And modern technology is basically value generating. It creates products which are less resource intensive, so transport is not that much of a disadvantage. It creates high value added projects. And then there are opportunities which are of a global kind, which the ministers spelled out. I think one of the dangers in this business when we look at it is to sort of look at, I'm an input-output wala, is to look at interrelated industrialization and say, this is what I need to industrialize, this is where my industry grows, so I will integrate backwards, I will integrate forwards. I think that's probably a mistake. It was all right when you were a closed economy, but when you are operating in a modern competitive framework, then you have to look at the advantages that you have in particular processes and link up with the rest of the world. And in that sense, you can think of clusters, some industries which are related with each other, and you need to identify them, but the role of the state is what the minister spelled out. It is to create infrastructure. It is to create the policies which make those industries more competitive and create the conditions in which others can come. Take diamond polishing. I think that because Hyderabad has also an old tradition of pearls, which is earlier location based, but now is based on imports, and jewelry. Surat, as you know, I mean, our exports of polished diamonds is almost, in terms of value added, it's almost as much as the IT exports. It's a very major industry for the country. And if you look back, Radhakrishna would remember when we were both in the Sardar Patel Institute, we did a study of diamond polishers in Surat. And in those days, all the diamonds would come from Amsterdam. The design would come from Amsterdam. You polish them and they would go back to Amsterdam. Now, what the diamond polishers did was to first acquire the facilities in Holland and then the world. Gitanjali Minister, which is one of our big companies, and I've been to it when it was a little cottage industry, owns 18% of the retail trade in finished diamonds in the United States. That's the kind of acquisition that they have done. So you take your advantages and you link up with global markets in a reform phase. I mention this because pearls and jewelry has been with you a big area of strength. Now, what does this mean? It means supporting organizational structures of distribution, of processing, of markets, strongly based on, because many of these things are inherited skills, so based on community strength and trust. At the same time, upgrading technology. These days, industries which were entirely hand-driven are not so. They use computers. They use processing machines. And integrating that into your production processes on a large scale, because in the inclusive design that the minister gave, those things are very important, becomes the policy challenge that you have. The other thing that you have to realize is that in these kinds of industries, there is already intense competition, so don't over-regulate it. If you can think of some of these industries, the difference between a worker and an owner is not that much. If I do very well as a diamond polisher, I buy a few more diamond polishing machines. If I don't, I become a worker myself. So this kind of mobility is something that you have to recognize. Competition and mobility, and to support it. And where can you support? You can support in terms of networks of technology upgradation, standardization, training, market tracking. Where are the big things happening in the world? Modern communications. Help people in developing the solutions themselves in an intensely competitive world. As you know, China has been wanting to take our diamond polishers away from the last 15 years. And this will happen to you also. When you succeed, others would want to take it. And the question then is, give them sufficient support that they are internalized in your setup. and play this game, the national market, the global market, technological upgradation on a general scale. So I discovered very much, and we were great input-output wallahs. There are many friends here, K.T.Rama is here in the Sardar Patel Institute. But you know, Radha, I discovered recently that the work that we did then, which was done for the kind of industrialization I'm talking about, you know, the old style industrialization, around everything you license, you protect and so on. But China has used those models for setting up, I quote Yi Ying and Fan Bing Quan on system dynamics of regional social economies. It's a kind of paper which talks about the models that the minister talked about. And they used our work there for the Baoshan area in Shanghai, but not for locating industry. Again, I repeat, building up infrastructure. That is the name of the game. Training infrastructure, technology infrastructure. So that is where, you know, not doing anything will not matter. I think your perspective that you want to support industry is extremely important. But supporting industry in an intensely competitive world is something which requires, as you said, agility, looking at the world, hands-on, and then building around that. You have resource bases. I checked up the agroclimatic project of the Planning Commission before coming here. In fact, in Telangana, traditional non-food crops have grown much faster than food crops. The percentage of area under non-food crops has gone up by 10% in South Telangana, and it has gone up even more in North Telangana. So, that is traditional, but also non-traditional non-food crops have roughly doubled in the regions of Telangana, both the south and the north, which in other words means that a lot of diversification is taking place in your agriculture already. And you have so many crops which are coming up, in spite of the fact that, as you said, you are a water-constrained region, and some of the largest areas under what are called difficult groundwater areas are in the state of Telangana. So water has to be treated very as a scarce commodity. At the same time, that scarcity of water itself has meant that there has been a lot of diversification that has taken place in your state, and you have to build on that, and I'll get back to that. Now, as I said, if you are landlocked and you have this, technology is a big source of strength for you. But what is technology? Is it something that the textbooks say, a machine, an abstraction? If you are talking about industrial policies, then the whole question of technology has to be brought to the ground. And you have to build around that so that you build up support structures. So even though you are landlocked, even though you may have water shortages, you use technology to overcome all of that. And we have to appreciate that technology is not just specialization in one or the other area. Anything you look at, a railway ticket, any of your, you see that a number of technological areas have gone into it in the change that is taking place. Modern technology is genuinely interdisciplinary. And the question for an industrial policymaker is, how do I help these people in getting together? Say genetics or communication and computers, they have applications in areas like agriculture, public health. In genetic mapping, for example, IT technology, biotechnology research, parallel computing, data systems, genetic codes, they are all required in equal measure. So how do you constantly keep on pushing up on this downstairs case? I think this is well understood in Hyderabad. I remember when I was a minister, today I saw it in the newspaper, so that reminder came back to me. Shanta Biotech, your dad yesterday, when supported them, the new, this thing. Well, in '96, Shanta Biotech had produced the hepatitis B vaccine. And the French, who are now cooperating with them, went at them. Their technology was 10% of the cost of the global competitor. And they took a plane load of journalists from India to Paris to show that this company can't do it. I remember Mr. Vara Reddy then, at that time I was a minister. Our people at Lucknow and in the IDRI assured me that the technology was in fact a very effective and safe technology. And with that, I don't mind telling you, I've never in my life gone to the press to give me press publicity. I'm a university teacher. I say what I want. If they listen to me, it's good. They do their job, I do my job. On that occasion, Minister, I talked personally with every major editor in Delhi. And I said, these fellows are knocking one of my Hyderabad-based companies, which has done very well. And I want the newspapers to kill the story because they took a whole plane load of journalists because they are wrong and we are right. Now, I am so happy that, we have today, Shanta Biotech has in fact collaborated with a French firm. I think this is the dynamics of modern industrialization. I don't mind telling you a similar case, which is Navbharat Seeds, who produced biotechnology seeds for cotton. He is a Gujarati entrepreneur, a man who went to the US, did a master's in chemistry, came back and had about 1.5 million farmers in Andhra, Gujarat and Maharashtra applying his seeds. And Monsanto went at him. And the same case we have to support him through in the early part of this century. And now he's collaborating, Mr. Desai, Navbharat Seeds is collaborating with Monsanto. So I'm not at all surprised that Shanta Biotech is collaborating with, the French Sanofi in producing this. They were, as I told you, there was a time when the French was really trying to destroy this famous experiment.
If you can't beat them, join them.
Huh?
You can't beat them, join them, right?
Yes, sir, I think it's a little more, you're right, it's a little more than that. It is that, our people develop the confidence and then they treat them as equals. What is happening today, I think the history goes back over 2 decades. And if at that stage, I'm quite happy that I gave 5 crores from the Technology Development Fund because Vara Reddy was finding it difficult to complete that project. I believe that the Technology Development Fund is now being used for so many other purposes and that's wrong. It was just meant to take our technology, its productionization, cover the last one. And that is what, very humbly, sir, is my submission for your consideration. That it is this mechanics. It's not that easy not to intervene and at the same time support. That is the name of the game. Now these are examples. Whether you talk about Navbharat Seeds or you talk about Shanta Biotech as examples, they are examples to internalize that this is the way we want to do these things on a much larger scale in the future. This kind of technological breakthrough, if the infrastructure is there, it will spread very fast. This is the experience on a global plane. This is the 13th Directorate of the European Commission. FAST, Riccardo Petrella. He shows example after example. If it's not there, it doesn't spread fast. I'm glad you mentioned the corridors. This technology does need, this kind of a technological breakthrough does need support and infrastructure. There are details that I've given in my speech. The other aspect is what one of my friends called self-destructive nature. Once upon a time, you produced something, it lasted for 20 years, partly because you were a closed economy. Today, product cycles are short. A year and a half, and what you are globally competitive in now, you are a has-been. So to constantly keep up in this game, you need to give support to people to keep on innovating, to keep on being at the cutting edge of competitiveness. And then you must realize that the potential of this kind of support is very high. It spreads from your intended benefit to all kinds of areas. So, I think there is an understanding. But how you will support, we know that there are different models. It can be a corporate enterprise. Some of these services may be in a non-profit mode. Others may be in terms of a producer company. The state has to have with it a kind of repertoire of organizational advantages with which this person, if it's a group, then they can pick up not the old style cooperative, but let's say a producer company which comes out of the so-called Second Amendment to the Companies Act of 2002, which was based on a committee that I chaired, which is now there in the 2012 Companies Act also. It could be a co-op. It could be so many alternative forms of organization. And you have to help in all of that. Now, in agro-based industrialization, Minister, this is what the agroclimatic project says about you. Rice, sweet sorghum, foxtail millet, maize, horse gram, green gram, sunflower, cotton and groundnut, tapioca, gherkins, onion, okra, chilies, brinjal, tomato, flowers, gomphrena, crossandra, jasmine, garlic, ginger, medicinal and aromatic plants, sandalwood, glory lily, senna, ashok, kinchona, mango, banana, grapes, guava, sapota and citrus. Then of course you also mentioned livestock, cattle, buffalo, sheep, gold, poultry, piggery, fishery, beekeeping. This is for your region. I'm not talking something in the abstract. This is, I just got it down before I came because Radhakrishna invited me, so I thought I'd do some homework. Now, and you're absolutely right. You need to create clusters and knowledge-based institutions in Hyderabad and around Hyderabad to support this kind of agro-based industrialization. It's not easy. Let me give you a single example of pulses. Somebody had asked me to chair a committee on pulse. At one stage I said, we import a quarter of our pulse demand. And if we do it properly, I think we can be self-sufficient in a period of 5 years. So somebody said that, and the Agriculture Minister, Sharad Pawar, said it in a cabinet meeting. Dr. Alan says that, we can be self-sufficient in pulses. So the PM said, because Yuvendra Singh is asking to do it. So I chaired that committee. Let me give you a single instance. Today, our best districts, and some of them are in Telangana, the average yield of pulses is around 10, 11 quintals, are producing up to 13 and 14 quintals on an average. There are farmers and others who are doing 20, 22 and so on. There are countries in the world where the average yield is 22 to 25 of pulses. So I tried to check out what they do. The amount of technology that you need, the minister talked about seeds. There are seeds today. Our best seeds give you a yield, which give you yield 40% more than our best seeds. But it's not an easy game. It's very easy to talk about agro-based industrialization in the abstract. One of these agro-based consortiums asked me to chair a committee. They have some kind of a global project on poverty removal and technology, and so they sent me to the US to do this. And I was coming back and they said, Dr. Alag, can you spend a day with us? So I said, no, I'm going back. No, spend a day, you'll learn something. So I went along. So in one of the big seed manufacturers, they have a machine called a chipper. What does it do? You know, once upon a time, if you wanted to design a new seed, you'd go to the minister would say, these are the characteristics we want. So we will get some 1,000 plants which have those characteristics. Then we will breed them, bring them down to 200, bring them down finally to 10, and then release those 3 seeds which are needed to achieve its objectives. Well, the chipper, what it does is, it puts together modern biotechnology, computers, and that process which takes 8 years, it brings it down to 1 year. It tells you, this is the seed that you want to experiment with in this time. So if you, in all these beautiful crops, if you really want to do something, sir, there is so much to do. What is the price of a chipper? $1 billion. It's a patented technology. But if somebody like you who's been in the US really sets his mind on it, I'm sure you can build up a public-private, a PPP mode where you can bring them in. But that is the name of the game, the quantum jump. When you are short, technology provides you the support and you make the quantum jump. So, I believe that a lot is possible as you go along. I've written on it in a lot of details because Professor Gallup wanted me to do it. It's not that easy in India. Now the corridors. In these corridors, there are towns, which we don't even call towns. We call them large villages. Because our governments take a long time. What the census calls a town, the government doesn't call a town. You, sir, are looking after Panchayati Raj, and my recommendation for consideration is that at least in Telangana, all the places which are census towns and are not declared as municipal towns, please declare them as towns. Because that by itself gives them an advantage in doing the kinds of things. Otherwise, they remain at present as large villages. The census is calling them as towns, but the government still doesn't call them as towns. And as you know, there is the politics of remaining a panchayat. So it's not easy. I mean, let me make it very clear that there are 4 crore people who are living today in India in what are called census towns, but they are large villages. I mean, I discovered that phenomenon in a study that we did on Gujarat some 14 years ago, and I've been tracking it since. And if you want to read more about it, there's a book on the future of Indian agriculture, which is being published by me, National Book Trust. Cost only 100 rupees, so buy it. In fact, I recommend buy 3. They make good birthday presents. But leaving that aside, I think the real question is to zero in on these large villages in these corridors that you are talking about, to build up the infrastructure, to support the kind of industrialization that we are talking about. And I think it's doable, and I hope you will do it. Skills, I have only one word and then I'm done. Have a large skill development plan. Hyderabad is known for its skills. That's what made Bill Gates come here. At the same time, don't make it a plan which is just determined by professors like me. The most important thing in a skill development plan is that the certification should be given by the local chamber of commerce. Our experience is that if the certification is given by the local chamber of commerce, then that value of that certificate. Let me give you one example of a co-op with which I am involved in. We have a very big skill development program. It's India's largest sugar cooperative, and I chair the sort of knowledge base of that. You do a skill development course, the fellow gets, or the lady gets earning of around 3,000 rupees, either a job or self-employment. You give a certificate, you get 5,000 to 6,000 rupees per month. And this is about 2 years ago, it's probably more right now. Now let me tell you how colonial we are. It turns out that the Brits have something called a city guild in London. So if you have the city guild certificate, you get 8,000 rupees per month. So when I was doing this in Pravara, I called the city guild fellows in London. So they said, who are you? And my name is Yoginder Ala. Who is Yoginder Ala? So I said, well, we have a co-op and we want you to give us certificate. Why should we give you certification? We will pay you for it. Okay, that makes sense. But we have to come and inspect your program. So I said, you come. Who will pay us? We will pay you. You come. Fortunately, later on, the British ODA took the expenses of bringing them. But if you get city guild certification and the Chamber of Commerce is involved, then that skill also becomes another industry, generating that skill. So, Vandriji, I'm sorry I've been sort of more very, on the ground, rather than an academic like me should be talking about theory, interregional industrialization, all that. But I think you have a great future ahead of you. There's not that much I have to say because you already said everything. You took away all my thunder. But I thought I would sort of dot the I's and cross the T's and give a few suggestions which I hope will be of some use to you. And let me say, also on power, I have tried to collect as of last week, since I have my fellows in the power grid and elsewhere, the latest technologies which can help you in a shortage of power situation in making power more effective to the consumers of power, particularly industrial consumers. They are listed in my paper. You might like to look at them. There is a very wide canvas of such things which have actually worked in different parts of India. So I think a lot can be done in the short run, and in the long run, you've already dreamt up so much. And it is our job, as I said, to be of support to you. And if anywhere I can be of any help, I'm just a click away. It's yalag@gmail.com. And I will be always very willing to help the new state of Telangana, because the Andhras are a great people. Where do you get this culture where everything is different religions and different languages, Babu, are all together? It's really the heart of India. And I wish all of you good luck. Thank you. Jai Hind.